I'd like to call to order the Port Authority meeting of Tuesday, May 19th. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Damn, you're forgetting the thing. I am
Did
getting
anybody hear
Alzheimer's.
from Mr. Rowe?
He's on vacay.
He's out, yes. Okay, and I want to announce that we were tasked with giving an opinion on Waterfront Pier by the council. So I'll add that as number 5.
Did we do roll
Okay.
call?
Okay.
Did we do roll call?
Oh, yeah, we should. Do you want to do roll call, Tammy?
Absolutely. Chairman Dale Massad,
Here.
Member Carl Roth.
Here.
Please let the record show that Member Jennifer Jordan and Liaison Rowe were absent this evening.
And a minute.
Okay, approved minutes. Do you,
I had a chance to look over the minutes, and that looks on board from what I saw. So I'd make a motion to approve.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's one, Tammy, and this is the old one?
Yes, sir.
You could put in here, you own my mortgage, and I probably wouldn't know it.
I couldn't afford your mortgage, sir.
Okay. Okay, on the agenda, we have assessment of hazardous voltage. I will pass that to Carl Roth.
Sure. Had an opportunity to meet with Fire Department Captain Gupton and Building Official John Cosmo, and kind of clarified the canal where there had been some reports of electrical current in the water. And so they were familiar with the area. We talked about potential issues that it could be. For example, all the lifts should have a ground fault protector on them and stuff. Whether there are or not really depends on the age of the homes and stuff. But John was going to take a look at seeing what could be done, in that arena. And the main thing that we came away with was, and some additional follow-up that I had done, was to try to find some more information that might be helpful to them. So I had followed some information that I'd found that was pretty comprehensive, some in-depth studies and stuff, and there were some good pieces in there. For Mr. Cosmo, there were some things about how to do preventive work around the waterways. So the city may want to put in place a program to do something in that order. I know we put the article in the Port Richey newsletter, but what additional things, I wasn't sure that was a discussion topic we could have. And then for Captain Gupton, basically found some pretty good stuff about testing equipment, things that first responders could use. And also in that information, there was some things as far as additional training. So I hadn't had follow-up with them. I don't know if Tom, if you've heard anything from the crew on either end there.
I just discussed the matter with them, and I wanted to make sure that they had the equipment, the testing equipment, and they assured me that they did.
Oh, they had acquired?
It's, as far as I know. I'll
Oh.
double check again tomorrow, but the chief told me that they had what they needed.
Okay.
And, okay,
That's
What-
it as far as the strategies and
so they have responder stuff. Do you think, I believe we quit doing the air conditioning, whatever you were doing, match, whatever,
They haven't taken action on it yet,
okay?
but
Should I hurry?
What's that?
Should I hurry and apply?
I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. What I was gonna suggest or ask is maybe if you put out something, some little program of putting a, what is that gadget called for the docks?
GFIs?
GFI,
Yeah.
or you call it something else.
Ground fault circuit interrupter.
Interrupter, okay, anyway, I don't know if that would be over the budget, and I'm not sure what kind of thing, but maybe people who do not have it we could offer that too. I don't think it's a very expensive thing, and I'm not sure, maybe you know how much it would cost for an electrician. Or we could even bid it, you know.
Well, it depends on what they have. Each site would probably be a little different, but
Right.
what you may want to do is, when you speak to the council, you may want to talk about that.
Okay.
See if they're interested.
All right. I'm making this easy for us, Tammy. By the way, I'm gonna apologize. You already have the waterfront park in here, so.
Well, it's just the information that you need regarding that item, including the structural survey report, so that you can make your recommendations based on the information provided.
Okay. Okay, so do we want to offer a city funded or matching program for ground fault interrupters?
Well, you may want to speak to the council.
All right, I just asked them, are they interested, and leave it at them.
Well, if I may, that program is associated with the community development grants, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so is that something that we just go to council on and regular council meeting versus a CRA meeting, or?
At the next meeting, we'll have both.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna do that. All right, so you covered 1 and 2, didn't you?
Right, those are really the documents that we had provided
Right.
to the city.
All right, let's see what Tammy has for us. I haven't, did you say there's some documentation we need to know, or just?
Actually, sir, that's in regard to your recommendation to council
Okay.
regarding the waterfront park pier, but I might suggest to you, for legalities, that this is not on the current agenda, and that we could schedule a very, very soon Port Authority Board meeting for this particular item.
Tammy had prepared the agenda before she left, and last Tuesday, the council wanted to defer to the board for their opinion. And so you may want to look this over and meet again in the near future to talk about it
Opinion on
on the pier.
what
The
should be done?
material that is that what you're talking about? I'm sorry if it's not.
Well, we're kind of jumping around, Tom, to be honest with you. I don't have anything on the pier here, I don't think.
No,
Yeah,
there's
there.
a separate document, sir. The front cover looks like this.
Right, you got it, this one here.
It's not in the agenda, but
Okay.
I had Joyce make these copies today for distribution tonight. And my memo is in there that went to the CRA, and the structural analysis report that was done by a structural engineer is also in
So
here.
you see that. You know, it's interesting in regards to that pier. I took a person that builds dock out there today. It just happened that he came by, and I said, I want you to just give me a ballpark on what you think it would cost to do this. So we went out. Of course, we can't get in because it's locked off. He looked at it and he said, my God, that's overkill. If you've ever looked at it, I'm sure you have, it's bolted. He said, they could have lagged that. And apparently they did it, at least part of it, as per engineering. His thought, which shocked me pretty much, and I think we should at least take it to council, is to have somebody look at repairing the dock.
Well, what we did, it's been a while now, because I've put this in front of council several times. I had a structural engineer take a look at it, and that's what you may want to read.
Right.
You know, and I couldn't expect you to do that tonight, but you might want to do that, and then at the next meeting, discuss it. And it has an analysis of demolition costs, repair costs, and replacement costs in there. And basically what went wrong with it.
Let me just read this conclusion.
So the guidance the council is looking for is whether it should be a repair or a replace, or if it is a replace, what other options, or can you give any insight?
I just think they're looking for your opinion on what you think ought to be done out there.
Okay, because I guess, we had made some recommendations about over 2 years ago, and I just wanted to make sure is this different than those recommendations that we made at that point in time, or?
Well, I don't know if you've seen this report or not.
This particular report, no. There was the assessment that was originally done, yes.
Well, this is the only one that was done, so you might
Okay.
be
How much
thinking.
did this cost us, Tom?
What's
How
that?
much did the engineer cost us just for this?
I'd have to look in the records.
What,
Okay.
wasn't this reviewed at the council meeting?
Yes.
Okay, that's probably where I saw
This
it.
recent one?
No, this one, this document here,
At the recent council meeting?
no, in 13.
It was a while back.
Yeah, it's been.
Yeah,
a
in
while.
13.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to understand a little bit.
Yeah, we've
because-
only done one.
Okay, because as a result of that, we made recommendations to council to proceed, this is where that whole
Right.
design-build approach came up, was to investigate a different strategy of construction of a pier. So, and we offered at that time, if there were different options that the council wanted us to look at, be it floating or whatnot, we could do that, but we never had any direction from council at that time to pursue other options. There were lower impact than what we had here. Now, this document is talking about the ADA compliance issues that are here, and I don't know if we're going to be in a position to even get that to standard based on what I think the width of that pier is. Do you know the width offhand?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you it's about 6 feet.
Oh, is it that wide?
Yeah, right at, maybe 5. Right, I'm just remembering from today, because I hadn't been out there.
Okay, I meant to look, but I did not, because that's a critical area. And I talked to Florida Communities Trust about this, and they said, there's some latitude they could provide us on a repair if we were going to make it ADA compliant. There could be a transition, but we'd have to update our plans and all of that to incorporate that in. I guess, should we look at this from the standpoint of updating the plan as well?
Well, I think that the council just wanted you to review the matter, and if you had any recommendations, make recommendations to them. That
Okay.
was my understanding.
Okay, well, if you read this, it is the opinion of this report that the pier's main structural support, lumber piles, and lateral bracing elements be repaired back to a serviceable level. That's the same thing the dock person I took out said. And I don't know if any of you been there, the first 30, 40, 50 feet is very good, except for the lateral handrails, and you'd have to replace those because of splinters. You just have to do that. Or what his thought was, take the angle out, cut them all flat, and put composite sort of material on the handrail. And I said, well, what about where it looks like some of the piles have come up? And so it goes like this. There's a part that goes like that, and it goes out. I don't know and I will find this out before long. When I get out on the boat, I'll go over, but I don't know what the pilings look like down there. But he thought that he could take this concavity, if you will, and cut things, take a straight line down, cut them, and re-support any pilings that were not to bedrock or resistance. And this is just a ballpark out of his head. He said, I can do this for $15,000. So I think that it would be, actually, I'll make a motion since there's only two of us. Motion to offer council the approach of, as we have before, design build versus engineer design and subcontract, and bid out to a design build, or as many as we can get, as to how reparable the pier is and the cost. Did you get all that?
No, I'm listening, and I guess I'm just, having just kind of refreshed memory on the report, I haven't put an eyeball on it to know, how many other red herrings are out there with it as far, the ADA accessibility I'm concerned about. Because it's significantly different than the current pier, the ADA requirements.
You mean in width is what I assume you're talking about.
Width is my biggest concern, because there's an accessibility piece associated with wheelchairs, and you also talk about the approach, and the approach from the parking lot, the parking area there up. Since if it's not meeting ADA compliant now, and that we're doing something, we could get this whole can of worms. That, so I guess where I'm going, I'm not sure if I'm ready for a motion.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
I'll give you the readiness. Because I assume that anybody that's building docks, or let me add to the, I assume that anyone that's building docks would be building to the ADA codes, because any city has to do that.
Right.
So I am also assuming that they may come back and say, we can't repair it because it's too narrow, or it's repairable and it meets ADA. Or if they come back, we say, does it meet ADA? I'd like to get things moving because the wheels of government grind slow enough.
Right. I guess if we're confident that it's a rebuild,
That's what that's what the whole motion is about. Put it out for opinion and cost of rebuild.
okay.
By design, I think it's gotta be by design builders. If you can't get another engineer, we gotta use our engineers. So you put it out for bid. If you throw it on the wall, if nothing sticks, then
I think if we incorporate a new solution, then we have a more complete envelope. Even if, just say, a new pier came in at 100,000, okay, versus 15,000 for a rebuild. At least we know what a new pier is, and we've got the full flight envelope of what our options are. And we can go to council, the city council will have all of that information, rather than saying, well, that's more expensive, or it's more complicated, or it'll have more downtime, versus if I went and just bought a whole new pier.
well, I don't think downtime is a big problem since it's been closed for 2 years.
Okay,
All right,
all right.
point well taken.
All-
Okay.
All right, so,
Let me rephrase.
Okay.
this for you. Put it out to bid by design builders as to repair, ADA compliance, and rebuild costs. Get both repair costs and rebuild costs. If you don't get a repair cost, then we will have to assume that they don't think it can be repaired. And if we get a rebuild cost, we'll have a barometer of what are they gonna look for? And hopefully we'll get 3. Aren't we required to get 3?
Not necessarily.
No?
You would hope you would get 3.
Yeah, I would almost, I guess I can't make that as a condition of the motion, can I?
you could just say bids.
Okay, so we're saying bids, and we're saying design build,
Okay.
ADA compliance, repair cost, rebuild cost. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have got that one
I-
worn out.
Before we go off of that, I guess I do have a question. Have we under code, since this is a derelict dock, have we been getting fined for this for 2
No.
years? Why?
It's a pier and it's deteriorated.
Right.
We're not getting fined.
Well, under city ordinances, we're supposed to.
We're gonna fine ourselves?
Well, I just asked, we haven't been responsive in the issue, and currently, I just had some local complaints. The city's been going out, hitting people up on docks that are problems. And we've got 2 piers that have been in derelict condition for over 2 years, and the city hasn't acted. And we look a little off, if you will, because we haven't done what we're telling our constituents they should be doing. So I just asked the question, have we fallen amiss of our code, or has our code department not said anything officially to us, or more importantly, council? Because if the council was told that we're in a condition here that we shouldn't be in, then maybe they would be more encouraged to act, where they haven't been.
Well, I've put it in front of them several times with the message that we need to do something. And, so I'm trying.
Shoot, I thought you had total control of this council. God, you can't make them move. We're in trouble. Okay. So, Tammy.
Yes, sir.
For your, I've kind of give you a Reader's Digest of that motion. Want to put out to bid for repair or replace for design builders, including handicap compliance. Correct? Okay. We will move forward. I'm sorry, Frank, we have to do this so we get a hard copy, and it's easier to do it while we're moving, if we're moving. Okay, Waterfront Park taken care of. Number 4, discussion on dredging. And I want to ask another question, Tom. Do we own Waterfront Park Pier?
Do we own the pier?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay. Then the reason I ask you that is because if we can replace it, we can give ourselves a permit. We don't have to go through DEP or anything. If we're rebuilding, if we're not replacing it, if we're rebuilding it, we don't have to go through DEP. We're just rebuilding a dock.
Well, what we would need to do is either get a permit or a letter from them exempting the rebuilding.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is I believe Wade Trim had said, they're going to add in the permit for their $42,000 to design a pier, and I'm going to tell you, I can go to Engineering 101 for a week and design a pier. I mean, it's really sort of ridiculous. But, and the other thing that I know, and I don't know if it would apply with the city, is when I wanted to extend my dock, I called the DEP and our building department both said if it's less than 1,000 feet, you don't even need a permit. Now, and I'm going to backtrack to something I forgot. Mm-hmm. I also, and this will go forward also with the dredging that we're going to talk about. I've had some people very upset because we're dredging, not because we're dredging Shrimper's Channel, but they feel like, and I like gill dogs. This is not a negative to gill dog thing. They feel like if we're going down that channel, the only person that really benefits is gill dogs, because all we've got is a kayak ramp. So deep water is not a necessity for the city. And my thought would be, if we're going to dredge Shrimper's Channel and multifaceted thing, dredge Shrimper's Channel. We'll have to look on the dredging map as to where the channel goes. If you went on the west side of Waterfront Park, as opposed to going down Gill Dogs, go to the west side of Waterfront Park, and have that channel at the, you can see here, we're on a sandbar. Okay, I'm not sure where the plans say that our channel could be. Tom, you could probably see this, or you know what's here. In other words, if we come in this way and continue this way, it's almost the exact same distance. Doesn't look like a square to you? If we went this way as opposed to this way, we would create a channel that actually the kids might catch a fish in. Not that they don't catch a catfish occasionally or a stingray, but having some deep water, particularly at low tide. At low tide, there's no water at the end of that pier. And, well, you're a boater too. I might be getting in my way of, no, it won't. People coming out, it won't. If we just went out a smidgen more, and really it would be a matter of where that channel is located, and I don't know that. How would we find that out
We've
from
got-
our permit?
Well, keep in mind that there hasn't really been a final decision on that at all.
On
we-
dredging?
On where. We put
Okay.
the concepts in there that we were directed to, and that's been approved in the form of a multi-year implementation plan that was submitted
Right.
to the county, but no final decision. The council can change the plan and dredge somewhere else, and it's up to the city council.
Okay.
And
Well-
so, the one thing that I also wanted to tell you is that it's gonna be a while yet, because at first, we thought it was gonna be after October 1. It's now been delayed again because of comments from the National Wildlife Federation on the unclear benefits with regard to water quality. And so those comments are being addressed by the county, and but we were asked to change our schedule to February 1 as opposed to October.
To start dredging? Is that?
No, at that point would be when the money would be available.
Oh, okay. So we're not talking about our waterfront, water quality where? In the river, in the bayou?
Anywhere, the benefits of what the city is proposing to do and the environmental impacts of it. What they thought, and this is just comments from the National Wildlife Federation, is that, we've stated that there will be water quality improvements via improved flushing and so forth. They, in their mind, that was not adequate.
National Wildlife Federation or U.S. Fish and Wildlife?
No, it's National Wildlife Federation. And so they were looking for something else. And it is just a comment from them. And so, in my conversations with Curtis Franklin, I've suggested that we might be able to do some stormwater treatment for water that's discharged into Miller's Bayou, or other programs like, public education on fertilizers and that sort of thing. And he liked that, so maybe we could do something.
Okay.
You have minimal cost and still reserve adequate funding for dredging as much as we can get. We were awarded $667,000.
Right.
So, but the council can change the multi-year plan.
I understand.
Yeah.
All we're here to do is advise them what we think.
Yeah.
My, if it came down to water quality, even though it's not what I think should be done, if you dredge into Miller's Bayou, or through Shrimper's Channel, now you're into that corner where Miller's Bayou is. If you went down Gildog's Channel, or whatever channel.
18.
18. Channel 18, then you would have improved water quality and flushing on Channel 18, because it would, and my preference is to dredge these things only 3 feet below mean high water. That just saves us money, Tom.
Well, that's That's a decision that they haven't got to yet.
Well, I know, but we're just advising.
Oh, yeah,
So
understood.
That's
Yeah.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
But the
If-
thing that I wanted to make sure is that it's hard for us to quantify the environmental benefits or water quality improvement benefits. And the comments from the National Wildlife Federation were, you know, we'd like to see the water quality improvement quantified in a better fashion. So,
That'll cost us $667,000. Anyway, to go on with my dialogue, I'd like to, how would we find out where that channel is exactly? Do you have this? You're an incredible secretary.
Chairman, we had talked about this, one of the rubs that we're going into, and I apologize for not having this generally available. This is the information that was in last meeting's packet, but we had talked about channels 1 and 18 being the two channels we were looking at. So here's where 18 comes in, and this is the Shrimper
Right.
channel, and it
Okay.
changes where they connect. I guess
So
the
this
key.
would be the location of the channel if we dredged the west side.
Correct, and what you can see here on this schematic
What
is
is
that the pier is about 150 feet or so short of the channel location.
Is that far?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
you're probably
there to there.
right.
But the big rub that we're running into is this hashed area is all seagrass. So, and that was the issue we talked about at this meeting around the boat ramps, is that Waterfront Park, at least up to the pier, is surrounded by seagrass, and that was
100%.
probably going to be a headache for any work that
Where are
we
you talking
did.
about, up here?
This is all seagrass.
All this entire channel, 18 is probably the most intense from a seagrass, mangrove, wildlife thing of any of them.
Gotcha.
But here, I think we have no problem as far as that's from your aerial. This channel's going here, there's no seagrass here, I can tell you. But
Right.
we would have to, if we just moved it out 50 feet, I think, from my gross measurements,
Okay.
it's maybe 100.
Uh-huh.
Tom, then actually, if you moved it out 50, you would only have to cast 50 feet to get into that channel. So that would be workable. Thoughts?
I think that goes into, I think what Mr. O'Neill was talking about is that if we do the rebuild, our permitting is simplified if we don't change the footprint. There are some nicer things we'd like to do, and if we would do those, there's time and cost and all of that stuff associated with it. So it's just something, yes, sir.
How much more if we just did the rebuild and we could rebuild the current pier, would it be a major thing to move the dredge channel east 50 feet just at one point so the kids or whoever's fishing there had access to throw into that channel? Or is that an act of God deal?
it probably would require a permit modification
Is that act of God?
from DEP, Army Corps.
Yeah.
So, because it's permitted in a certain location now.
Okay.
But all of those, I mean, to do some of those things may provide an opportunity for a workshop to talk about all of these types of things, because you've got a lot of balls up here in the air, depending on how much you throw up, and, how many changes, how many things you want to push on. The simplest is clearly to replace the waterfront pier like for like. That keeps us whole, and it gets some things done. And, maybe we could assess an option to go with a low-impact extension. And what I mean by a low-impact extension is some of the...
Floating pier.
Right, is what we had looked
And
at.
there's no requirement for
Well, you'd have to set pilings, but there are piers now, and that was another thing because the pier was built prior to the Florida Communities Trust giving us the property, the pier is not as low impact as it could be. For example, the light emitting through, because there's no grass there, and if the extension, we could have light pass through it, it could be floating, and, a gradual ramp down. That may give us the extension, and we don't have too much work to do to get some things happening that way.
I'm just trying to figure out how you stay awake reading this stuff.
While just trying to figure out how to get things done in a way that will be acceptable to the powers that be.
I appreciate you, believe me.
So, by getting the pier and making that as easy as possible, and to Mr. O'Neill's point, we could see what kind of flexibility we have with the permitting authorities to get that done and get the ADA compliance per the Wanamaker-Jensen report, and then maybe have the ability to perhaps extend it further to get to the deeper water and not impact the grass flats, to keep FCT happy, Florida Communities Trust, is kind of where I'm heading.
Okay.
And then I want to catch that big fish there too.
I think, okay, I'm gonna try to break this down into pieces since we have so
Okay.
many in the air.
Yes.
And I'm gonna I assume that I'm passing the gavel. I'll make this recommendation. If we dredge and when we dredge in February, if we dredge in February or whatever we wanna say, that Channel 1 is an imperative, because Miller's Bayou's closing off, Tom. I don't know if you've been in there recently. At low tide, if you don't have a flats boat like mine, you got problems. You definitely can't go to Shrimper's Channel. I don't know, excuse me, how, it seems to always be deep in front of Seaside and Hooters. Mm-hmm. So if you go down that way and you don't have Shrimper's Channel, you've really got a quagmire where boats coming out and boats coming in are really pinched. Whereas if you have the channel, the outflow can go down Shrimpers and the inflow can come in this way, and all the boats that are coming out of Gill Dogs can go down Seaside or through Shrimpers Channel. Anyway, it gives a 2-lane highway where we really have a 1-lane highway. So what I'm recommending, or what I'm making a motion now down to bare bones, is that whatever we do dredging, we should dredge Channel 1, which is Shrimpers Channel, and then we can make another. But that dredge Channel 1 if we are gonna dredge, because I think it benefits the entire bayou and businesses.
Well, that's what's on the radar screen right now for the Restore Act, 1 in 18, is my understanding.
Right.
I'm sorry, did you ask me a question?
Well, my understanding is for the Restore Act proposal,
Yeah.
that we were talking about doing channels 1
yeah,
and
that's-
18.
that's in there.
Right?
Yeah.
So, how is this different?
Well, if you read this, and I wanted to ask Tom anyway, will be used to complete the preliminary engineering and permitting plans and specifications for Nix Park boat ramp relocation, which I talked to 2 council people and they haven't even said we're gonna put boat ramps in.
That, once again, that's a plan that can be amended, and if the
Right.
council decides not to pursue relocation of the boat ramp, then we just wouldn't do what you just spoke of. There would be no need to do any preliminary engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm just gonna say this publicly. I don't see any possible way you could spend less than $700,000 engineering and building 3 ramps off Waterfront Park. Additionally, the FCT isn't gonna allow it anyway. At least that's my correspondence with them has been. So, when are they gonna take up this? I mean, we have to have permission before we can do this.
Well, we're not going to do anything right now because we're dealing with addressing the public comments. So we're not spending any money.
Okay.
And at one point, if the city council says, no, they don't want to relocate the boat ramp, then we won't spend any money on that.
Okay. Any thoughts on, or preferences on recommendations as far as dredging? Or let's just go to the boat ramps. Have you gone and looked? You know, I told you the elevation difference out at that, the corner is the only place I can see that it would be possible to put a boat ramp.
You're talking about the potential at Waterfront.
Potential boat ramps.
I guess, just trying to hold you back here on something. Are we talking about the dredging?
We're
Or are we talking about the boat
At
ramps?
this point, because we jumped over to this.
Okay, so are we finished on the dredging, or, because you were starting to talk about the,
I think it's all one pot, when you really look at it. If they're gonna do the boat ramps, you gotta do 18. If you look at Waterfront Park, where are we here?
no,
Here's Strippers Channel. Well, how could you get, what, are you gonna put them over here?
I'm disconnecting I'm not connecting the two together. We have a dredging initiative that we talked about to get one off the turning basin in 18. There's been discussions for over 3 years with Mr. Soroyan as far as doing some shared component, which included 18. Okay? So we have one component that's gone to the Restore that deals with that, right? There's another.
Did we send that?
I'm not sure I understood your question.
There's one component that deals with channels 1 and 18 for dredging associated with the Restore Act.
Yes.
That's what we sent.
There's another part of the proposal that deals with the potential to establish boat ramps in Waterfront Park. I view that as two separate components, and
Well, the reason I'm hooking them together is the question I have is why would, and again, the council can change whatever they want. Why would we do 18 instead of doing that?
my understanding is Mr. Soroyan had some discussions with the city about doing some shared cost associated with 18. So the city is able to get more done because of the shared cost. So I see that going along. I don't see anything changing or any discussions associated with that unless there's something you want to bring up.
Something to say, yeah.
Okay.
When Eric brought that up, I've never had my jaw drop so far as when the council turned him down. Rich Rover was not here, so we had four councilmen. Mm-hmm. Eric had offered to split $88,000 bid he had for Shrimpers Channel and his bite. Mm-hmm. Shared cost, $44,000 to us. Mm-hmm. 2-2. It was, you're turning that down. How can you turn that down? I don't know. But so I never know what the council's gonna do. So,
I guess from my standpoint, I'm okay with we've always talked about getting the dredging started.
right.
Okay,
And I'm with
so
that.
in that 1 and 18 is a start, I have no issues. If when it finally comes down to the brass tacks of making the go or no-go decision, to Tom's point, in the first quarter of next year, and we want to have discussion as far as finalizing that plan, I think we could talk about it at that point in time as far as, are we sure we want to do 1 and 18?
Right. Well, what I'm saying is, I would like to have them I don't even care if it's our recommendation. Our recommendation would be, look at this thing from do you want to do 1 and 18 or 1 and
How about
start
this?
around the bite?
Potential motion when we're ready to begin the dredging project, to have a discussion with council about which channels are started.
Would you do that as a motion?
That is a motion.
Okay. Would you repeat it?
Certainly, would make a motion that when the funding is becoming available, that we recommend to council to hold a session to talk about which channels are dredged. Is that? work for
Very
you?
good.
Okay.
Oh, I just gotta get it down, although Tammy probably has.
Will you be taking back your motion?
What was mine? Which one?
You had
The
made a
last
motion, right before Mr. Roth regarding dredging Channel One.
Oh, no, I think Channel One goes regardless. I mean, I'm not taking that back and it's passed. Channel One has to be done. That's for everybody in that entire bayou, every channel. And I don't even think that would be a question in their mind. I mean, why dredge back here if you can't get out? So we're gonna go with that. When funding for dredging, whole session, council session,
But we didn't really vote on that one. So, because we were having this,
are you voting no?
I'm not prepared to say one is it. I'm prepared to have the discussion about which ones we should do, based on what funds available.
Well, I'm
And if that's
quite-
one, I'm good with that.
Well, one is, I can't, I just don't want, I mean, I could see somehow some of this getting done and not the exit. And I just don't, I want them to know
I don't
that.
see,
I can't imagine it, but
the recommendation is to have a discussion, to have that finalized point on
Okay.
which channels are done.
Okay, as
Are
to
you-
which channels.
Right.
Okay.
So do you second?
I will second that motion. All in favor? Strongly recommend one. Okay. We've talked about this. I've got this to read. So as of now, we are recommending to council. Do we want to offer a city program for GFIs in some manner as to their discretion?
Right, we talked about bringing that up to council.
Okay. We have a motion, or we have an advisory to have a design builder have bid a repair or replace for Waterfront Park Pier.
With ADA.
Okay, and ADA approval, handicap ADA approval. Okay, and the third one is, I guess, out, although I'll probably bring it up anyway. And 4 is when funding for dredge, hold a council session as to which channels are to be dredged.
Yes.
Correct? Any other thoughts?
On those 4 items?
Or period? I'm gonna ask for a motion to retire and.
Well, we've kind of gone through all these. We have some folks in the audience.
Oh,
Just seeing if
yeah.
we ought to open up on any
Frank?
of these topics, that
Rich?
there's any input.
Yes. Where do you want me to start?
Right there, go.
Well, he was here ahead of me, so. Okay.
Go, buddy, go.
Rich Mountain, 5342 Blue Point. I have personally walked underneath that pier. It's a piece of crap.
Okay.
You're gonna be far better off, because if you go ahead and repair something, you need to make sure that that thing's gonna last 50 years. I think that needs to be one of the stipulations that we put into this, that the contract bill, if that is the case, it's gonna last 50 years. And that we're gonna be able to monetize that park so that it pays for itself, so the residents that don't use that park are not forced to pay for something they don't want.
How would you monetize that part?
There's many ways to monetize that park. Pay for parking, pay for boating, pay for, make it.
Do you realize the FCT's restrictions on that park? Have you read the
Who's
deed?
paying for that park?
It's paid for.
Who's paying for it? It costs money to maintain it, and I'll bet you.
You'll Rich, I would only ask you to read the deed and you'll know the restrictions. But parking ain't gonna be one of them.
Well, ramp park, you can park for, to get onto the ramp, I'm sure you can make them pay for that.
I am praying the council doesn't make that decision, but if they do and FCT is totally ignored, you realize the penalty, they do not even have to send us a notice. They just take the park back.
But
You have to know the rules before you can play the game. So go to the next thing. I'm not trying to hurry you, but they're not gonna allow it.
I have a question. You mentioned that you had a chance to do a visual on the pier.
I did.
Could
I've
you,
done the engineering report as well.
Oh, you have an engineering report?
This one.
Yes.
And what did you visually see that kind of forced your conclusions?
Those pilings are junk, and even if you do go ahead and replace those pilings, you probably got maybe 5 to 10 years of that deck actually lasting.
Gotcha.
Well, that's why all we're doing is advising, and we're advising to
No,
see.
The reason I came up here tonight is because I wanna assist in
Okay.
advising.
Right?
Those were my two concerns, but we try and get something to take care of paying for that project and maintaining it, because I think that's important. And if that pier had been properly maintained all along and built to the proper specifications, and that's nor here nor there, we would not be having this predicament that we're in now.
What predicament?
That
The,
needs to either be rebuilt or repaired.
well, yeah, I would agree with you there, but we have the same engineering company that engineered it is probably being used to rebuild it. So, when I looked at the pier, the first 30, 40 feet, like I said, that's all I could see. Haven't gone under it. But that's why we're advising to get professionals to look at it. Can we get 15 years out of it by repairing it? Then I would have to say go for that as opposed to $250,000 to remove it and repair it. Hoping that, in 15 years, we have money to remove and repair it if that is the necessity. But I would like you to get a visual on the elevation from the top of Waterfront Park to the water, and imagine that you're gonna build a ramp that is far enough back that it doesn't have the slope that you're gonna need. I mean, you can't go off down. And imagine that the side walls of that will have to be reinforced with cement. And imagine the costs, and imagine, you can't, because I've been doing this DEP thing forever, but imagine trying to get those sorts of permits. It's not gonna happen. I mean, I just feel that comfortable with saying that.
Chairman, have you had an opportunity to go before council or CRA as far as the monetizing the waterfront park issue?
Oh, it's been mentioned. yes,
Okay.
multiple times.
Okay. Just want to make sure, because we don't necessarily have full purview in that arena, so I didn't want it to, but
Yeah.
I appreciate.
We have to make sure that the things that we're doing now are gonna be paid for and not by everybody or a burden to the city.
I would say, and Tom's looked into this, I assume at Nick's Park, just putting a pay as you go, put your money, put your card in and launch your boat.
Yeah, we looked
Cost of
into
that
it.
was something like 50,000, I believe, one of the.
Oh, no, it's far less than that.
For less?
Yeah. Are you talking about for a
Just
payment kiosk?
Yeah.
Oh, it was, wasn't even $2,000.
Oh, we should be talking
Well,
about that.
the council has discussed it and decided not to pursue it.
Right. We had made that recommendation a couple of years ago, and they met about it. There were some other operational issues associated with it, and elected not to go forward.
Was there a problem from administration?
No.
Well,
So I think that's just lost money, and we have to repair that. We cannot, say, okay, Port Richey citizens can go in for free and non-Port Richey, nor could we if we were on Waterfront Park.
No,
But
everybody's
you're
gonna be charged
launching
the same amount.
several hundred boats a week at $10, you could,
Or
$5,
for that matter.
that would be fine. As far as the parking goes, I've just recently read the FCT deed, and it's very restrictive. As a matter of fact, part of it recommends more bike stands so as to reduce parking. They're not gonna allow this. And as a resident right there, even though you are almost as close as me, I can't imagine dumping 60 parking lots, boats and trailers onto and off of Old Post Road. It's absurd.
My point here is we gotta figure a way to pay for it in the future, so we're not having these discussions. When it needs to start now and not after we decided it's already built, now we gotta figure out how we're gonna pay for it. That's not how this should work.
You talking about the pier?
And any of
Any of these parks, we've got several parks that we're paying for, not just this one. And they all take money.
You're preaching to the choir mostly, except for Waterfront Park, which is the only one I really consider a park. The one on Miller's Bayou,
Take from one park to pay for another park, they're still all in the city. That's my feeling.
what are parks? Are there restrictions on the park in Miller's Bayou? The one on the north,
Olsner Park.
Olsner Park.
You talking about Olsner?
Yeah, it's not, it's just a city park, right?
Yes,
Could that be sold?
yes.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Just for-
I'm not familiar with any deed covenants on that.
Yeah.
No, there might be that I just don't know of, so.
I mean, that would be a possible revenue source. I don't think that is an overly used park. I see the Canadians swim there.
The other problem is it has probably 15 parking spots at
Not
most.
even that.
Yeah, but if it has 10 to 15 parking spots, that's a lot. So that's the
Right.
most people that are ever gonna use that, except for the residents that can walk to it.
Well, I'm saying, I don't know what the thing would bring for a single-family home, but anyway, that's just for my information. We have a lot of parks, and I agree with you. The only one that's significant is Waterfront Park, but it is under very stringent deed restrictions. And all this Bayou Business Association stuff,
Not if you're tough, Greg, from
I'm just talking, that seems to be where the tug is from.
But I think the information he brings is good, and I think we should kind of take that in and think about it as far as what's possible. I think the point is that whatever we can monetize, we should. That'll help offset
And
the
I
cost. That's the bottom
absolutely,
line.
absolutely
So
agree
for-
with that. I just unfortunately read the deed recently.
There-
And there is no concessions, you can't monetize anything in my Waterfront Park. My shingle is only hung with one nail, so I'm not a lawyer. But I don't believe you can. Other thoughts, Matt, Rich?
That's really all I had right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, anything?
I have a couple of things I want
Yes.
to do follow-up, mostly because of the minutes on the last one that we had put a couple of things out there.
Did you take your mortgage?
I'm sorry.
Did you take your house? Did we approve minutes that Tammy could have your house?
No, no. Not we had talked about extending the DEP and Army Corps permits beyond 10/1/2015. Have we pulled the triggers on that?
We've written letters to both regulatory agencies requesting that the permits be extended. It's gonna take a little extra work on the Army Corps permit because we've got to go through and redo a couple things. They've told us that we had to do that. So it's underway.
So are we going to be, how long are we going to be able to extend for?
I don't know.
Okay. Did we find out whether quarterly dredging reports have been submitted to DEP as required under the permit?
No, I don't have an answer for you on that.
Can,
They've not raised it as an issue. The individual that worked for us has left the employ of Taylor Engineering.
mhm.
And so right now, we've got somebody new we're working with. But we haven't received any type of request from any regulatory agency that we were remiss in submitting a required report.
Okay. On any of these permits we receive, whose obligation is it to adhere to them?
On the permits,
On any permits that the city receives, whose obligation is it within the city to assure we adhere to them?
what's the city's obligation?
Okay. On the other thing we talked about was the dredging fee reduction for 1 in 18. there was a fee that was required by FDEP. Have we initiated any efforts to reduce that fee as part of this process?
There was a fee
Yes.
involved with 1
Just-
and 18,
Yes.
just specific to those canals?
Well, it's specific to starting the dredging, and
Yeah.
it has to do with the entire project. And that was a,
We've done nothing with the permitting other than request an extension.
okay. I was just thinking if we incorporated that in, we may be able to save ourselves a little bit of effort.
What is that, where,
Before we start the dredging, as a percentage of the material you're taking out, there's a fee that the DEP requires, and it's basically.
oh, you're talking about the $2.25 per yard that you're removing a fee to
Just
cover your.
before you start, before you get out of the blocks, and that fee is based on the entire project for all 26 channels. And if we're only talking about 2, that's a front-end load, we may not be planning for from a budgetary standpoint. I don't know how detailed we've gotten from a budget standpoint. But if we're going to the well, it was just a way to potentially reduce the exercise with DEP as much as possible. Have we initiated the DEP waterway signage permit inspection recertification process yet?
Yes, we inspected the work, and I took a number of pictures. We were out on the water, and I sent them to Joe Wagner with Taylor Engineering, and he recommended paying the contractor for what was done, and we did that.
So the inspection has been resubmitted to DEP?
No. Well, yes, excuse me. As far as I know, the Taylor Engineering did that.
They submitted the triennial inspection?
Yeah, I would have to ask on that.
Okay. Could we find out, I'm just following up on the stuff that was in the minutes that we talked about last
Yeah.
time. Let's see. Oh, the other thing that was referenced in the minutes that I didn't understand, you mentioned, Tom, that the city attorney has been asked to draft an ordinance to change the slow speed zone, but we're obligated to have a public hearing before we do that. So my question is, why are we spending time with the city attorney doing things that he's not authorized to do?
That's, what are you saying again now?
In the minutes, you had mentioned at the last meeting that the city attorney had been asked to draft an ordinance to change the slow speed zone from 12 to 10A.
Yes,
Under code.
10.
Right, under code, we're not able,
Where are you?
that's further out. That's outside of the city, outside the
yes.
mouth towards Durney Key, halfway to Durney Key. It's extending the zone.
In the channel, I'm assuming.
Well, it depends how the ordinance is written, but conceptually, yeah, it's extending it.
Okay, I just wanted to know where they were.
12 is at the final turn to Durney Key, and 10 is out further. But my point is that we have to have a public hearing before we can do any of this. And my question is, why would we authorize the city attorney to be drafting an ordinance when we haven't even had a public hearing?
Well, we're required to do it, and so I asked him to do that.
We're required to do,
We're required to change and extend the slow-speed minimum wake zone.
we haven't had a public hearing to do that.
I don't see that that's a requirement at this point. I've asked him to amend or prepare an amendment, and generally what I've done is I've put it on the agenda for discussion, and, but in this case, we don't have any alternatives.
We're required by,
Coast Guard.
Well, we're required by Coast Guard. We're not following the stipulations that the Coast Guard had authorized anyway.
Well, you know, bear in mind, we don't have any choice. So I've asked him to go ahead and proceed with that. And then once he got to that point, I planned on putting it on the agenda for discussion.
My question is, why have we not had a public hearing? That under city
I didn't
charter,
feel
we
it was
have.
necessary.
Under city charter, we're obligated to have a hearing.
I
And
didn't
under
feel it was
DEP
necessary.
Under DEP permit requirements, we have to have a public hearing. and we've done neither of those things.
Well, we will do both of them when the ordinance is up for discussion and then further consideration. We will have 2 public hearings.
Okay. My point is that I've heard significant negative feedback from voters in the area as far as extending it beyond the city boundaries, i.e. the mouth of the river.
I would expect considerable backlash on that.
On top of that, there's no obligation on the Coast Guard to use 10A, and we're not following the stipulations that
It's
are.
10,
It's
not
10.
10A.
Well, according to the minutes, it's 10A.
Okay.
So I'm just following the minutes. But according to the Coast Guard, we have the ability to use, they authorize that for something, for some reason, I'm not sure why. But that was never under the original city permit from the state, DEP.
I know that.
So I guess, how are we gonna get our arms around this? Because this has been going on for 3 years and it's still messed up.
I'm doing the best I can.
Do we need to get somebody else to?
Like who and what? I mean, I've asked the attorney to prepare an ordinance amendment. He hasn't got it to me yet. He will. And then I'll put it in front of the city council when it gets completed.
What is your obligation to follow city charter? Is there any obligation?
Well, you know, at this point, I'm telling you what I've done. I thought it best to do that, to try and expedite it, because we don't have any choice in doing that. And it's not a requirement of the code or the charter for us to hold a public hearing on this at this time.
Before you're authorized to do anything, it's a public hearing is required.
That's not correct. I mean, if the attorney told me that we needed to do that, then of course that's what we'd do. But I mean, I'm asking the attorney. I don't know if you're, you know, in that position or you have a law degree, but I'm asking him, and he agreed. He didn't say anything else. I just asked him to prepare it.
The waterfront signage is a bizarre project the city has been going on for almost 3 years now. And it is mind-boggling to me that we can't get signage correct. And it is amazing that we have permit obligations that we don't adhere to.
Well, Mr. Roth.
If I may, there are stipulations from the U.S. Coast Guard that we ignore and don't adhere to.
Those
And
are
our
not-
cit-
that's not correct.
Mr. O'Neill, I have the floor.
You are incorrect.
I have the floor.
Okay. You're incorrect.
I am not incorrect.
And we'll talk, if you want to talk about it, come into my office and we'll talk about it.
I've talked to you about it for 2 years, and it's still not
Well,
correct.
Okay, wait.
We
Let's
hired an
give the
engineer.
floor to the council, to the member, and then,
We had
Tom,
input from the engineer,
you
and
don't
I've
have
done
the
what I
floor.
needed to do. You differ in your opinion, and you're not correct.
all right,
May I have?
you don't have the floor. Let's just follow procedure. You finish and let Tom
That's fine.
rebut.
He's had his rebuttal opportunity. The stipulations are very clear in the letter that Mr. O'Neill received from the Coast Guard on where signage is supposed to be put on the U.S. Coast Guard ATONs. We did not adhere to those, according to the U.S. Coast Guard. There are permit requirements from the state, DEP, that require a public hearing before we can extend the zones of coverage, and we have not done that. The city charter requires a public hearing. There's been no public comment in a formal process. And I personally have had multiple comments from seasoned voters in the area that are appalled that we would extend the zone further than it already is. And basically, it appears to me that there is a complete disregard on your part as following the rules and permits that are established at state and federal levels.
Okay.
That is incorrect. And what I have done is received input from the engineer who has inspected all the pictures and told me that the work was done in accordance with the permitting requirements. Additionally, we're not obligated to hold a public hearing at this point on extension of the zone. We did not request that it be extended. It was mandated to us. And so we're doing the best we can to comply with it. All of the other work outside of the extension of the zone has been done in accordance with the permitting requirements, and I've got an engineer to stipulate that, and he did it in writing to me.
Okay, quite frankly, you two have lost me. Let me ask you this, Tom. I do have a problem with the city doesn't follow the charter very well, but what you're saying, the Coast Guard has mandated this be done. So, and this is a question to both of you, I guess. If the mandate is from the Coast Guard having a city meeting, whether pro or con, well, I'm asking the question. This is not if the Coast Guard mandate said the city, we hold these meetings, and the city is against this totally, is there any choice, even if they're against it, to do what the Coast Guard says?
I don't know. You know, we didn't ask for it, and I was kind of surprised when it was mandated and became part of the final permit modification. You know, I'm a boater too, and I don't look forward to going out the channel and not being able to motor up until I reach marker 10.
Ooh, where is that? You gotta tell me where this starts. We go across the S-turn. I don't look at the markers. I keep red on the right and blah,
12 is the
blah.
last one, the S turn.
Okay, we're here.
And then 10 is halfway to Dirty Key.
This is 12 and 10 is out here. That sucks.
I
That
don't
really
disagree
sucks.
with you.
But the Coast Guard we have no alternatives. We have no, can we oppose their mandate? Can we ask for forgiveness? Whatever. I mean, do we have any alternatives?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, they're
Do you?
telling us.
May I ask a question?
All right,
Do
you
we
got
have
the floor.
any other communications from the Coast Guard other than the October 29th, 2013 letter authorizing where we could place the waterway signage?
I'd have to look.
Okay. Well, I've not received anything other than that letter, and there's no requirements to place them on those signs in that letter. It's not the Coast Guard's obligation to direct where you put a waterway speed zone.
The Coast Guard cannot mandate it, in your opinion?
State.
Well,
Tom, why
If-
don't we get
if
an
that's the
opinion?
case, I'd love to not do it.
Can you ask Mr. Public if
Yeah,
that,
sure.
that, that, I would ask you to do that, and you agree, obviously? To ask the attorney. I mean, listen, I don't know enough to tell you I agree or disagree, but I damn sure don't want the no wake zone at 10.
Well, the rub is the engineer sounds to have led the city down the Primrose path, and there's probably not communications on what the engineer did with the Coast Guard, so why those markers would have been identified are unknown, because we haven't seen any documentation, and the only documentation that Mr. O'Neill has is that singular letter from the Coast Guard.
Do you have a
So,
copy of that?
sure did.
Okay, I'd like to have that. Would you like to make a motion just so we make the city council aware of your thoughts, the voters' thoughts?
Well, I just,
You don't wanna,
just to add, you know, I was surprised at that, and obviously, if we didn't need to do it, I wouldn't have wanted to do it at all. So I wrote the engineer, I got some comments back from him, you know, in other words, do we really have to do this? And he told me, yes, it was a condition of the permit modification.
what permit, what permit are we modifying? I
The
get it.
waterway signage permit.
Jeez,
No, if we don't have to do it, I don't want to do it at all.
that adds 5
My,
minutes to
my
everybody.
advice to the city would not be to adhere to anything that Mr. Taylor advises regarding waterway signage, and we've said that before, and it's particularly true now.
Well, it would appear to me that we have a consensus between Tom and you as to well, one, we don't wanna do it, and two, you don't think it's even legal. Why don't we bring it toward legal, necessary, following procedure, however, you want not following charter, not following procedure, legal, illegal, necessary, unnecessary.
If, you know, Mr. O'Neill has chosen to listen to Mr. Taylor on this. I've explained to Mr. O'Neill several times that Mr. Taylor is a buffoon regarding waterway signage. But we continue to walk down the path as far as requiring something based on a letter that states nothing of the sort that we're obligated to do that. So my advice is to not do it, but decision is the city's on what they would like to
We'll
do.
make a motion, which I will gladly second, that says we advise the city not to extend this and disagree with the engineer. However you want to make it, I'm listening.
Now, he doesn't work there anymore, so we're not using him anymore.
Okay, well.
There's a new
listen,
person that's working
If you
there.
have a legitimate complaint, we're only the messengers.
I understand.
So if it's a legitimate, in my opinion, now that I know where that we're talking about, that we bring it to their attention, that there's some concern, let's say, in the necessity of this being done, in whether or not there's should be a meeting.
I would make a motion to not extend the speed zones as they are described under current city ordinance.
I second the motion.
Keep in mind, we haven't done it, and I have an opportunity now, since Joe Wagner doesn't work with Taylor Engineering anymore. There's a new person involved, and I can pursue trying to get relief on that permit condition. I don't know if we'll be successful or not. I mean, but, you know, my gut feeling is,
Get that.
I certainly don't want to do it if we don't have to.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion, I try to write, I forget she can listen to this. The motion is to not extend waterfront signage,
The speed zones,
waterfront speed zones.
beyond what they're how they currently exist in the city ordinance.
You know, I question whether we even had the authority to do that, because it's well outside the city limits.
Exactly.
I,
That's,
I wanted to make another point, and I am not sure but at one point, I was shown a map that shows the city limits 10 miles out.
Yeah, that's not it.
And now, I'm not saying that that's true, but I'm not sure that that is outside the city limits.
I didn't.
Durney Key was originally a part of the city. I think maybe the state of Florida took it over like they tried to do the sandbar. But at one point, Durney Key was in our city limits. And one of the old guys on the police force that was, Gene was his name. Do you remember him? Gene was always on the water.
I
and
remember.
He told me that we went out 10 miles. I think he showed me a map of that. I wouldn't swear to it, but I'm not sure that 10 is out of the city limits. Do you have a clue?
that would just be correlating with the state boundary, and, but near as I was looking for a legal description on the city back when, and I didn't see anything extending beyond the land, the boundaries, the survey boundaries of the land for the city. I'd come into,
See, I've never seen those, Tom, the survey of the, we're talking about a different thing, I'm jumping, I apologize. The surveys of Waterfront Park, how much of the entire park is submerged land, or do you know? And how much is upland?
I don't know that we've ever had a survey on the jurisdictional land there.
Okay. I'm just wondering about the upland, because Somebody tried to tell me it was 11 acres, and by Oklahoma IDAR, it is not 11 acres. I want to say 4 or 5
Yeah.
max. But anyway, okay. All right, that was, did we vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And you got me on that other one, I'm mad.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I would accept, barring anybody in the audience, a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?